Welcome to the Assist Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Schwartz, and joining me today for our big college football checkup about 4 weeks into the season is the one and only college football expert I know, Luke Lengel. Luke, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm absolutely buzzing. Real Madrid's top of the table for the first time in like 7 years, until Wednesday when we lose to Atletico, but I'm great right now.
Yeah, my sports teams. The Lions are 2-0 and won somehow.
There you go.
That's the only team though that's worth my time here with Michigan, UCF, and Barcelona losing all within 3 hours of each other. It was on Saturday. It was actually a moment where I was a little rude to some people I was talking to and stuff, and it was those moment as a sports fan where you look at yourself and you're like, I gotta tone this down. This is bad. So that was my I'm being a dick moment. I gotta tune this down after games. The first one of my life happened after Michigan got absolutely hammered by Wisconsin. UCF lost on a trick play, and Barcelona lost to Granada, who just got promoted. So that was that. Yep.
Well, to be fair to me, or to you at least, the Steelers are 0-3. So, yeah, they're not really doing well for me. So
when Roethlisberger went out with that injury, I was like, "Yep, there you go, Steeler fans, long year." But then again, you got to have some, especially being I know how good this feels, being a Cleveland or a Pittsburgh fan in Cleveland has to feel a bit good with how the Browns have been doing, right?
Oh yeah, I mean they do look better than the Steelers, though, to be fair. So
yeah.
Hopefully they get rattled by Baltimore next week.
I was going to say there was that one season where Ohio State went like 6-7, and that was the most glorious season of my high school, middle school, elementary school career. Other than that, it was just pure misery. So we can start there. Ohio State, there were some rumors nationally, not rumors, I guess. Some people, on ESPN stuff talking about how this could be Michigan's year. There's the transition from Urban Meyer to Ryan Day, of course, as head coach, and then Justin Fields was very talented, of course, no one questioned that, but it was unproven. And Michigan, is supposed to be super experienced, and Josh Gad coming in as coordinator, is supposed to really revitalize Shea Patterson. So 4 weeks in, Ohio State looks like they're going to go to the playoff again. They've been absolutely murdering everybody in their schedule. Granted, they haven't really played anyone I would consider tough, although they crushed Cincinnati, who isn't a bad team. They're a 10-win team last year. So, I mean, it just looks like, once again, in the Big Ten, we have Ohio State, and we'll talk about Wisconsin, but, I mean, Ohio State looks like the grade A team in the conference again.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they haven't really played anyone of note. And also, like you said, Cincinnati's not a bad team, 10-win season last year. Indiana's in the conference, so, that's not like the worst team ever. But they look really good. Justin Fields, he looks sharp. J.K. Dobbins, dominant. And I've been mostly impressed by the defense. Last year that was a big thing. The defense is just not good. It's the worst I've ever seen it. But this year, they look dominant, especially stopping the run with Chase Young. They look scary, especially Chase Young. He's very scary.
Yeah, he's a future top 10 pick, right? I mean, that's what people have been saying about him.
He's probably he's top 5 for sure. If there were no quarterbacks, he would be number 1.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense because quarterbacks are always first and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I haven't really watched too much Ohio State because every time I look, they're getting blown out. But, I mean, they had, I guess, a big game at Nebraska this week, but they're still 17.5-point favorites. I just looked or something like that. So, I guess their stiffest test yet, but, I mean, they should hammer that. I mean, I know they'll obviously the Big Ten East gauntlet with Penn State, Michigan State, and they get Wisconsin, right? Along with Michigan, of course, at the end of the year, I believe this year there's a Wisconsin regular season game as well.
Against Ohio State?
Yeah, against Ohio State.
Yeah, they play in a month, I think, yeah. I'm not sure if that's at Wisconsin or at Ohio State. I'm not sure. I'll have to look.
That'll be a good game. But speaking of Wisconsin, a absolute beatdown of Michigan. I watched the first quarter I went over so my cousin was in town. She's a Tennessee fan, so that bad day for her too, getting absolutely demolished by Florida.
Bad day all season, honestly.
Yeah. We can just laugh at Tennessee for a minute. So my grandparents invited me over. They live down here. Obviously, they had the Michigan State flag and UCF flag flying high on their garage, and we watched about a quarter of this Michigan game because. So the thing about this Michigan team, obviously the offense doesn't look good, and granted, the offense hasn't looked good for a large part of Jim Harbaugh's 5-year tenure. So, whatever. But Jonathan Taylor, great running back. Okay, probably the best running back in the nation. Okay.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
200 yards against Michigan. When is the last time you've heard someone run for 200 yards? And the other thing was, he was out for a quarter with cramps. He didn't play for a quarter. And he ran for 200. I don't want to, there was the 1 year, 2016, Michigan went, I believe it was 10-2. We lost to Iowa and Ohio State. That was it, or 11-2, whatever. They were very good. Last year, they were obviously very good before Ohio State, sent them down a rabbit hole. But, this Michigan team, it's not just the offense, because offense, last year even the offense wasn't great, and we just kept winning games. But when the defense, and there's been no changes on the defense in terms of just people leaving, but people thought that they'd plug it right back in and go like Alabama does. When that type of team, when that kind of performance like that shows, and like the other thing is Jack Cohn, right, Wisconsin quarterback. I don't think he's a grade A quarterback. I think he's probably a good game manager like Wisconsin always has and what Wisconsin frankly needs for their system. And that's why Wisconsin can still be so good because they're a place. Have you watched Wisconsin at all this year?
I have not, no.
So there were plays where they would have 6 offensive linemen, right? Well, maybe it would have been 7 offensive linemen, probably a tight end at the end, whatever. And then instead of having a fullback, they would have 2 more offensive linemen behind the tackle and guard, and then they have the quarterback and the running back. That's the formation, and they just shoved it down your throat repeatedly. But my point is that this is a lot. There's a lot of hype about this, and even I said it. I went with the home pick. I said I think Michigan and Ohio State are very close to equal, so I have to pick Michigan, right? Mm-hmm. This is an 8-4 Michigan team.
Yeah, they did not look good against Wisconsin. I watched a little bit of it. So I have watched a little bit of Wisconsin, not enough to, understand how they play. But I do know that from previous years and from what I've been hearing this year is that they just play smash mouth football. Jack Cohn, he's not obviously an elite quarterback, but they have possible Heisman contender Jonathan Taylor, a really good offensive line. They have a really good defense, so they're just going to stick with that running game. And I was really surprised, by Michigan's defense, honestly, too, because that was the thing they were supposed to, be able to fall back on if the offense, wasn't working out. Because the defense has always been good, but they just fell apart. They didn't have an answer.
Yeah, it was just, they really rolled over, and I've never seen that for Michigan the past couple of years. There have been years where they've been bad, even under Harbaugh, but it looked like something from the Rich Rod era. And that's the other thing I wanted to bring up, because I complained to my dad about this. So, Michigan fans are ridiculous, right? Because, there's been rumors about Harbaugh not beating big rivals. There's obviously a restlessness to beat Ohio State. I get it. Growing up in Ohio, I think there's no election for this, but I think I'd be elected to know about that. Going through high school, just being repeatedly bullied every Thanksgiving after they lose. It's not really bullying. Don't come after me, whatever, child services. But my point is that I understand, okay? I want to beat Ohio State just as bad as any other Michigan fan, okay? And Notre Dame and Michigan State, whatever else. So the thing I get so frustrated at is that just 11 years ago, I'm looking at the date now, Rich Rodriguez took over as Michigan head coach from Lloyd Carr, the great Lloyd Carr, won the last national championship for Michigan in 1997. So Harbaugh here, I see a 74% winning percentage in both overall and conference play, which isn't necessarily world beating, but it's competitive. Michigan's been nationally ranked for a lot of the past couple of years. We haven't been in the top 4, whatever. So Rich Rodriguez was under 500. He was 40%, 25% in Big Ten play. Brady Hoke was 60% and 56%. But we all know that Brady Hoke team was not very well coached and put together. He took a lot of Rich Rodriguez's recruits. So what I hate is people talking about, Jim Harbaugh can't do this. The Jim Harbaugh train is heating up. Everyone needs to shut up as Michigan fans that complain about that, because it makes me so mad sitting there just guess what? Yeah, we kind of got our ass kicked. at Wisconsin. You know who else is a really good team that literally gave up 0 points in their first 2 games? It was outscoring people like 115-0. Wisconsin. Do you know who's now in the top like 8 of the AP poll? Wisconsin. You know who's a really good program? Wisconsin. Everybody relax. And yes, I'm getting heated, and I know I am, but it just frustrates me to no end because these people who root for Michigan teams will likely root for the Detroit Lions, Pistons, and Tigers and Red Wings. So other than the Red Wings, they're used to mediocrity, which is why I don't understand why they get all so bent up that Harbaugh loses a big game or two. Like, this is how it goes sometimes, and it's frustrating that it's two big rivals, but it's like, there shouldn't be, all this shaming after you get your ass kicked at Wisconsin. People didn't give James Franklin the same stuff at Penn State when Michigan pummeled them a year or two ago. So it's like, why is it different? That's my thing. And were a lot of people saying that Michigan is back? Yes. You know who wasn't saying that? Ann Arbor. I asked my aunt who lives there, like, what's the mood around the team? They're like, not good. Not really excited. So there you go. There's my 5-minute rant. I'm done.
Well, like you said, to be fair to Michigan, in the years of Rich Rodriguez and Brady Hoke, it was not good. The stats that you said, I thought it was better, but it was obviously worse. And Jim Harbaugh comes in and he makes them better. Michigan is better now than they were before. Jim Harbaugh. I think people forget that. And I think the problem people have is that he keeps hitting his head on the ceiling, and that ceiling is, the big rivals like Wisconsin, Ohio State. He can't get past that. And, obviously it's been 5 years. People are saying, well, he has his guys now, so he should be winning. It just hasn't worked out, and people are also saying, we should fire him. We need to get another guy and stuff like that. But if you're going to fire him, then you got to find someone who's equally as good, or better, obviously, because you want to get to the next level. But I think Michigan fans are being too harsh, and the media in general are being too harsh. There's still a lot of football left to play in the season. They're playing Rutgers next week, I think. So it's a good way to get your confidence back. Kind of a tune-up for Iowa in 2 weeks, who has quietly been playing pretty decent. They're like 13th in the AP polls, right?
Yep. Yeah. Iowa's been good.
Yeah. So there's a lot of football left to play for Michigan, and in regards to Ohio State, obviously he hasn't been able to beat them, but if I've learned anything from that rivalry game, anything can happen. No matter how bad either team is, anything can happen.
Yeah.
So,
and I think we'll talk about that J.T. Barrett fourth down play for years still, like decades as that goes on, because I still think that should have been the one. But regardless, the other thing I think you bring up is a good point is that who are they going to hire? Like, for the longest time, it was Les Miles was going to go there at some point, Michigan alum, and he never did. And now he's at Kansas, so that's not going to happen for the foreseeable future. Other than that, there's no upstart Michigan, person that I think. I mean, Desmond Howard can come back, right? But no, that'd be a bad idea. So, yeah, that's the time on Michigan. I'm done. We're not going to talk about the rest of the season ever again.
Like I said, there's a lot of football left to play, so they could turn it around.
The Lions are going to the playoffs. That's what matters. No, you're right though. Lots of football left in the Big Ten, especially with so many teams that are up there and competing. So, where do you want to go next?
Staying in week 4, Notre Dame, Georgia, game of the week. That was where game day was at. 23 Georgia, 17 Notre Dame. I think a lot of people, when I was kind of reading about it a little bit, and a lot of people were kind of saying that, like, Georgia isn't as good, because the line was 16 at kickoff, which I thought was insane.
I did too, and I want to say the mathematical model I developed agreed with that sentiment. That Georgia's like 3.5.
Yeah, so people were like, "Oh man, Georgia isn't as good." Maybe they can't beat Alabama and Clemson, but I think we should give credit to Notre Dame because they went to Athens, and I've never seen that stadium before. By the way, that light show is pretty insane.
Yep.
But yeah, they went to Athens and they really put up a fight. They were even winning for like the first quarter and a half until halftime. Really, they were playing really well. The defense played really solid. Obviously they couldn't get the offense going as much as they wanted to, but I thought they played really well. Brady Hoke What's their coach?
Oh, Brian Kelly. Yeah, he's another
Brian
one
Kelly.
that gets crapped on for no reason when he's built
Yep.
a successful program. So, like,
Yeah, they came in with a really good game plan, and they nearly beat Georgia, one pass interference call away. So
yeah, I love how Notre Dame coming into Athens, like you said, between the hedges and staying at night. And there's not really a lot of night games down there in SEC country, so that's crazy. And Notre Dame, who made the playoff last year, let's remember. And for people who will do the whole thing, it's like, well, they got crushed by Clemson. It's like, that Clemson beat Alabama by more points than they beat Notre Dame, but neither here or there. Is that Notre Dame made the playoff, right? Georgia did not, and Georgia beats them at home by 6. And like you said, a tightly contested game. And the reaction is, Notre Dame or Georgia's not that good. We thought it's like, what? Are you crazy? I agree with you. Give credit to Notre Dame, and if they run the table the rest of the year, let's give them their. Let's pull up their schedule here. I mean, the only thing is that they won't have a conference championship against another top 15 team to go off of, which is a shame. So it kind of. It stinks that in that way that this was their one big chance, and obviously this was a tightly contested game. I believe it was 2 years ago when they played at what's Notre Dame? Oh, South Bend. So we'll see. I mean, Notre Dame I know had a shaky start this season, but yeah, let's see. They have Virginia at home, USC at home, at Michigan, and then at the back end of that schedule, there's no ranked games after the Michigan game on October 26th. So we'll see.
Yeah. They need to join the ACC because there is no one in that conference that can come even close to challenging Clemson. They need to join the ACC.
I agree. I mean, doesn't the ACC have too many teams, though? I mean, for the longest time, it felt like they were going to join the Big Ten, right? Because they had rivals with Michigan and Michigan State and stuff, and they just never did.
Well, they should kick out some of those teams because some of those teams are just awful. So,
Who, in the ACC or the Big Ten?
ACC.
Yeah, I mean, the Big Ten could also get rid of Rutgers. So.
Yeah, fair enough.
Come on.
But we already have a lot of good teams. ACC, they need a good team.
Yeah, that's true. I was going to say the Big Ten East every year is really good. Yeah, the ACC, they're like, Miami's going to be good this year. It's like, no, they're not. North Carolina's Mac Brown. They'll beat Clemson. Goodness. Okay, I mean, even with the ACC, I was going to say Mac Brown, North Carolina, doing well. Virginia looked good. I watched their game against Florida State. Florida State, crap again. Miami, crap again. Clemson's going to win the conference. Even Syracuse isn't good. So, I mean, I feel like we can put a nice bow on that. Congratulations to Clemson, your 2019 to 2020 ACC conference champions and the number 1 seed in the college football playoff. Okay. And Trevor Lawrence gets his invite to New York for the Heisman Trophy. All right.
But he hasn't been playing well, though.
I know.
And I kind of want to talk about Clemson a little later when we talk about kind of the college football playoffs and how we think that's going to shape out. Because I have some things to say about Clemson. Not necessarily bad things, but I have some things to say.
Okay, perfect. We'll tie that back in then. Moving along, let's talk more SEC. LSU. I give you credit off air, so I'll give you credit on air as well. You've been on the Joe Burrow train since we did a preview podcast last year for LSU, and obviously last year it was not a bad performance, but it took a while for Joe Burrow to really get going. I watched the LSU Texas game a couple weeks ago. I know we're jumping backwards a bit. LSU has a really exciting offense. I mean, I know people talked about those LSU, Michigan, those kind of schools were finally modernizing their offenses. I don't know what LSU did, but it's insane how well they are playing on offense. And in fact, it's kind of funny because their defense is taking a big step back, it looks like. I mean, they gave up like 38 points to Vanderbilt. So, but I mean, Joe Burrow, I got to give credit to you. Joe Burrow, you've been on that train. You were hyping him up, former Ohio State transfer. You were right. I give all kudos to you.
Yeah, I mean, I watched that game too, and that offense is just firing on all cylinders. Like, it hasn't been like recent since LSU has had a good quarterback, and now they have their guy basically. And like you said, they're modernizing to that kind of quick pace spread offense, and it's working. They're putting up points on points. Joe Burrow is front runner, at least top 3 for the Heisman at the moment, I think. They're playing really well, and as we get into conference play, I'm really excited for them to play Alabama. That's going to be my favorite game of the year.
Yeah, you just hope because it seems like every year we get excited about LSU, playing Alabama, and then they lose. I mean, they've lost I think I saw the number. They've lost the last 8 or something. I didn't realize it's been that long since national title year when they beat them and then lost to them in the national title game. So it'll be interesting. The problem with that Alabama game too is it's on the road first of all, and oh no, never mind. I was gonna say Auburn's right before, but they get a bye week in between. I was looking at the dates, so yeah. I mean, it's just the SEC is just brutal. I mean, Florida at home now in a couple weeks for them. I'm looking at their schedule now. Doesn't seem as bad because of their backup quarterback, of course, playing Felipe Franks injured for Florida. Auburn at home. I mean, we've seen good things from Auburn. I liked. Texas A&M was favored last week against them, and I don't know why that happened, so I think I won a couple people some money off of that one. I gave that pick out. And then at Alabama, of course, is the big one in Tuscaloosa, and then A&M at home. So, I mean, it's, of course, any SEC team running the table is insane, but also we've seen teams like that, if they play close to Alabama and they go 11-1, I mean, Alabama got in that way.
So I was looking up on Twitter before we started, and the Fox guys, they were picking their teams they thought were going to get into the playoffs. I think it was Brady Quinn. He picked Georgia, LSU, and Alabama to get into the playoffs along with Clemson, which sounds crazy, but I was thinking about it this last week as the games are going on. I'm like, oh my gosh, this could happen, you know? And if it does, I'm going to lose my mind because I know Ohio State's going to win that this year then. They're going to go like 11-1. They're going to lose close to like Wisconsin or something, and they're not going to get in, and I'm going to throw something.
I was going to say, the only scenario that happens is if both Oklahoma and Ohio State have a loss, or Texas as well, in the or even Wisconsin for now. We'll throw them in. Whoever those champions are, which... and then what the argument is that LSU would have to be, and Georgia would have to be demonstratedly better or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at Georgia's schedule too, and it's like Florida at home, at Auburn, and then home to Texas A&M.
Yeah,
are the tough games, and they play Missouri at home too. It could be ranked, but like it's not inconceivable that they run the table there and then play Alabama in the title game, and like who knows? I mean, what if Alabama finished with 2 losses? I don't think they would as of now, but and to your point about picking people, if I pull up here this. My college football model I made. Alabama's ranked... Clemson's number 1 right now. Alabama's ranked 2nd. I was looking at, and there's like 4 SEC teams in the top 7. Yeah, Georgia's 3, and LSU's 4. Auburn's 7.
Fair enough.
Ohio State's 5, if that makes you feel better.
No. They haven't played anyone, so I don't really care. You know, once they start actually playing people, then... You know, I can start saying stuff, but they haven't played anyone, so.
I mean, I would love if Georgia or LSU were in the playoffs instead of Alabama. I think it's time to get some fresh blood in there, especially LSU. They haven't been in, right? Yeah, they have not. Georgia obviously has been, but I don't think LSU has been. So, but yeah, a good return so far from Coach O. Also, I just love hearing Coach O speak. Katie's not the biggest college football fan, but I've, kind of forced it down her throat a little bit just because it's what I do. And she knows who Coach O is and that he's the LSU coach because of his press conferences. And when he speaks, he's like, "Oh, guys, we gotta."
Dude, his low voice, yeah, it's great. I love it.
It's like he's been smoking for 50 years, but I don't think he smokes. So it's just fantastic. But yeah, so that's your SEC. And then basically, anyone else, Texas A&M, they just have a tough schedule. You can't fault them for losing to Auburn and Clemson, but it just seems like Kellen Mond's not ready. They could shock someone, though, is the thing. Like I said, they're on both those schedules I listed, so of those teams. So they could definitely pull up an upset there. And, you have teams that are lying there like Missouri, teams like that could come in and really shake some stuff up. Obviously, Mississippi State, always a decent team. So, but the SEC looks like there's those top 3 teams, and Auburn too as well. Although I don't know, Auburn's beaten Oregon and A&M, but I'm still a little uneasy about them. I think it's just because of the quarterback. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, the thing about Auburn is like they're kind of like Wisconsin, where their quarterback they're okay, but they have a really good running game. That's kind of what they lean on. Their defense is really good, so it's kind of like so they don't really have an explosive offense per se, and it's kind of hard to see them keeping up with Alabama and with LSU, and stuff like that. And looking at their schedule, they have to go at Florida. They've got to go to at LSU, and they got to play Georgia and Alabama. So they got to play all 4 of the top teams in the SEC. Yeah. So that's brutal.
That's tough. Yeah, that's just a tough scheduling break. So I think it'll be interesting. Did you watch the Auburn Oregon game? I know we're going all the way back to week 1, but did you watch that game?
I think I did. Yeah, I
There's
did.
a sequence. It's my favorite sequence so far of the season that I've seen in the first half, where I believe it was Auburn fumbled, and then on the next first down play, Oregon fumbled, and then on the next first down play, I think Oregon fumbled, and then the guy returned like 90 yards. And then the next play, first down, Auburn fumbled again. It was like literally 3 fumbles back to back. Maybe I got the order of that wrong, but I just remember them returning it. Then the guy was in the red zone, and then he fumbled again. Herbert did. So yeah, that happened. That's my favorite sequence so far. If anyone cared about that. Okay, we've avoided talk about the Big 12. Oklahoma hasn't really played anybody, although they did play UCLA, who just shocked Washington State. We'll talk about Pac-12 in a second. Jalen Hurts looks fantastic. I can't say anything else, and I don't think there's really anything else to say about this Oklahoma team. I mean, they look incredible as they always have. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, Lincoln Riley, goodness. I mean, some NFL team has to pay him like $70 million or something like that to get him, because this dude just doesn't matter who's there. He churns out winners and winners. And yeah, there are only 2 games right now. They obviously have the Red River Shootout with or Showdown. I think they changed it from Shootout to Showdown because of political correctness. Anyway, they play Texas on October 12th, and then they're at Kansas State, and then of course they have at Oklahoma State with at the end of the year Showdown with the Pokes, and then whoever is second in the Big 12 looks like Texas right now. And that's their schedule. So that's like what I said. If 3 SEC teams are getting, and it's hard for me to believe that either Oklahoma or Ohio State won't run the table. So, and I think Oklahoma's just more likely to, just because of the weaker schedule. So, I also don't think all 3 of those SEC teams are going 11-1. So that's the other thing. But
I sure hope not. But to your point about Oklahoma, and kind of go a little off track, if anyone is completely against the transfer protocol and people going in there because they're not starting, I point you to Jalen Hurts. He is probably a top 3 quarterback in the country, and he wasn't going to start at his team. So to see what he's doing right now, I think is all you need to know about why players should, if they're that good, go in the transfer protocol and go seek to compete. That's just my opinion on it. But yeah, like you said, Oklahoma, it's not as hard as the Big 10 and the Big 12, so I could see them running the table. And talking about Texas, transitioning over to Texas, obviously they lost to LSU, but I think in that game they didn't look bad. I thought they played pretty well, their offense at least, and they've been playing well. Especially with all the injuries they've had. They were able to hold off Oklahoma State. Their defense played relatively well despite all those injuries. So I think they still, it's an outside chance. I still think they have a chance to beat Oklahoma twice. Maybe, and make a case for the college football playoffs.
I was going to say, they were my pick in August for the college football playoff, and obviously, like you said, I said they were going to have to play LSU and Oklahoma probably twice, and they can only drop one, and preferably they wouldn't drop the Big 12 title game. And then, of course, they dropped LSU, and like you said, they played very well. They went toe-to-toe with them, with LSU. Of course, they were at home in Austin with Matthew McConaughey on hand, and they, Ellinger's been playing fantastic. And basically, I believe it was Colin Johnson on the onside kick there. He was about a foot or so from having that onside kick with a minute to go. It came, it was a long shot, but it came very close, that close to possibly getting another chance to go down the field. So I think Texas looks good, and I think we're going to get 2 awesome Red River Shootout games this year for the Big 12 title, and then coming up in October. So, and like you said, if it's in the Big 12 could be in a bad position if Oklahoma wins the first one, but then loses the second game, because then you end up with a 10-2 Texas as your champion. And I mean, we haven't seen a 2-loss team admitted yet to the college football playoff, so it will happen one day, but it has not happened yet. So bad omen there.
We can only hope that 3 SEC teams don't get in, but such is the way of college football.
That would have been the dream to have UCF in, but whatever. We'll talk about that in a second. I just want to point out Jalen Hurts, because these stats are insane. 49 for 61, that is an 80% completion percentage for 880 yards, 9 touchdowns, no picks, averaging 9.8 yards per carry, 370 rushing yards, and 4 touchdowns. And that is why he's your Heisman leader right now.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty good. And Alabama had both of them. Had him and Tua. So that's pretty crazy. We haven't talked about the Pac-12 yet. And that's because the Pac-12 is I know you don't like to use this language, but I will. Pac-12, once again, ladies and gentlemen, is a shit show.
Well,
it looked like Utah was going to be the team. They were ranked 10th, and then USC came in and just... I gave out the pick that Utah with the spread was a good pick, right? And of course we lost because USC won outright. And I texted the guy who ended up placing the bet on it, whatever, or did something with it, I don't know. And I was like, sorry, I don't take into account the third string quarterback being absolutely awesome, being able to beat a top 10 defense on the road. So, yeah, or at home. I'm sorry, they were at home. But yeah, either way. So Utah lost. Washington State, also undefeated, got beat by UCLA of all people. When I saw the score of that game, 67-63, this past weekend, I was looking for the overtime, how many overtimes it was, and it wasn't. The Washington State quarterback threw 9 touchdowns in regulation and lost.
I'd walk off the team. I'd be like, I'm going to go create my own team. You guys are terrible. I would be so mad if I threw 9 touchdowns and I lost.
That's like the epitome of Madden, when Madden's like, you're just not going to win this game. You can play as well as you are, but you know what? You're just not going to win. So yeah, I can't believe that. USC obviously has lost to BYU. Like I said, they're on their star quarterback, JT Daniels, is out for the year, so they're on their second and third string now. And then who else is in the mix there? Washington lost to Cal. Cal's undefeated.
They're the only undefeated team, I think, in the Pac-12, right?
Yeah, and they're up to 15th in the polls. Like, what the hell happened there? They moved up 8 spots after beating Ole Miss on the road, which, don't get me wrong, playing Ole Miss on the road and it was at like 11 a.m. or something like that, so that means that's like 8 a.m. for them. I get that, that's great, but you're moving them up 8 spots. I know other people lost and stuff like that, but I mean, if UCF is playing Cal, for instance, I kind of like our chances in that game in a way on a neutral field. Like, I think we could beat, like, I don't know what Cal has done to really show that, other than beating Washington, and then Washington beat the crap out of BYU, who beat the crap out of USC. And then Utah beat BYU. So you see here how the issue of the Pac-12, can you even follow the sentence I just said? Probably not.
No.
But it's a true sentence. And then Oregon, of course. Oregon lost to Auburn. I'd say they're probably the best team. I don't know when Oregon plays Washington. They obviously just beat Stanford, who Stanford looks terrible now.
Yeah, so anyone who thought Stanford was a signature win, sorry, they're terrible.
You might as well have added me. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Oregon only has an outside shot to get into the playoffs. You know, if they run the table, win the Pac-12, there are some teams down there, Washington, Cal, Washington State, USC. There's some decent teams they could play and they could beat. And obviously the loss, it was a close loss at Auburn, I think. Or was it at home? I can't remember.
I think it was a neutral site game. It was in like
it's a neutral site game? Oh,
yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, there's an outside chance. But other than that, the Pac-12, I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, there's a list of one-loss Pac-12 teams, and circle back to our conversation earlier. I mean, if you're talking about, obviously, I think the Big 12, Big 10 champions would get in over them. But if you're talking about 12-1 Georgia or an 11-1 LSU versus a Pac-12 champion Utah or Cal, based on these performances right now, obviously teams can play better later on in the season if they are to get there. Like, as of now, like, wouldn't we all agree LSU could beat Utah by 20? Probably.
Maybe more. We'll see.
Well, yeah, say, what would that line be? It would be pretty high in that direction, I would think. So yeah, I mean, the Pac-12 just once again, just no clear front runner. Just typical. So I think Oregon and Washington are the best chance, though. I mean, Utah, I don't know how that game happened. I flipped on the last half for last Friday, but that's just crazy to me. So, and Cal always seems to sneak up on people. I believe they beat Washington State last year, 2 years ago. So maybe it's just a Cal thing, and we'll see. We will see. UCF.
Well, Pat Narduzzi. Oh, yeah. Brother.
So, UCF played like crap. We're down 21-0. Came back, roared back. Penn State, goodness gracious. Pittsburgh's kicker missed 2 field goals early on. I was like, we're going to have a shot at this. You just get that feeling, right?
Yeah.
And, of course, they did, and they came back, took the lead, and then Pittsburgh ripped my heart out right at the end of the game. So the thing is, I think Pitt was really strong up front on their defensive line, and of course they played a really tight game against Penn State the previous week, so that shouldn't have necessarily been a surprise. Obviously we talked preseason about Brandon Wimbush coming in, thinking he was going to be the starter. We were wrong about that. This kid Dylan Gabriel, who went to the same high school as Mackenzie Milton, that's how they found him. Mackenzie was advising the coaching staff. This kid, he broke Tua's records, and Mackenzie's records in Hawaii. True freshman, so he looked really good. Against Stanford, he looks fantastic, and even against Pitt for flashes, he looked really great. So we're set at quarterback for another 4 years, which is nice. But it's just tough when UCF's offense. It's tough with the 3 and outs because we snap the ball every 15, 20 seconds. So you can our first drive lasted 57 seconds, and that's it. It took us a while to get in our rhythm. Obviously, came back and. I said off air, at the end of the day, if UCF went 11-1 with the conference title, that's great for me. I'm concerned about this. We have to play on the road at Cincinnati in a couple weeks, and that's I don't know how good Cincinnati is, but obviously they were very good last year. That's when game day was here for last year, and it's that they're in our division. So if we lose that game, we're gonna get shut out of the title game. Memphis on the other side, of course, looking great as always. So we always seem to play them in the title game. So as long as we get a championship, obviously Boise State looks fantastic too. So they might get the Group of 6 spot or Group of 5 spot over us. So whatever. But it's hard to expect perfection. I know UCF is literally 28-2 since I started school, with that being the second loss and LSU the first loss. So all the things I stand by. I think the Pitt fans started chanting overrated at us. We were down by 14, which. Doesn't make much sense to me because if they're chanting that the ranked team they're beating is overrated, wouldn't that mean you're decreasing your own team's worth?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want to beat a good team?
Yeah. Like my dad would say, people from Pittsburgh aren't very smart. So
there you go. But at the end of the day, it sucks. It's a game, and it's frustrating because I think a lot of people are pointing at this as UCF is somehow losing the respect, but we're not, because we stayed up till we're still 20th in the polls, so we didn't drop out, and I still think we're very good. I still think we'd have a fair shot against a lot of Power 5 teams. We're on the road in Pittsburgh. I think we just started slow, and at the end of the day, they had a great play design right at the end of the game to beat us on 4th down, and we're just going to come back. So that's that.
Yeah, and kind of the unfortunate thing about UCF is people are obviously they're going to kind of trash them and be like, oh, they lost the game, and they're not going to really get a chance to show how good they are, because they are a good team. Could they beat Clemson and Alabama? Maybe not. But they are a very good team, and with the slate of teams they have to play, they don't get a chance to play too many elite teams. So it's kind of hard for them to kind of gain their respect back from some of the media and some of the fans who kind of are pretty harsh on them. So I think it's unfortunate, but they're still a good team. And like you said, they only dropped to 20th in the AP polls, so it is what it is.
That Stanford game was so fun, though. Tiger Woods lives in Orlando, and of course is Stanford alum, for those of you that don't know, and we got Tiger Woods to acknowledge us after we were yelling at him to go home because we were beating Stanford so bad. He just did a little wave, so that was fun. And yeah, I still think UCF will win the conference, and who knows with Boise State. They looked really good with their own true freshman quarterback, which speaking of, I think UCF just announced home and home games with Boise State and BYU, so those are probably 2 of the other top 5 Group of 5 programs around. So those would be good games to see Boise play and then go to their place. So program's still looking up, I think. So yeah, that's my spiel on that. Apparently, my dad was saying people are disappointed with the game. It's like that we were literally and once again, not to rehash the whole Michigan argument, but UCF was 0-12 at one point. And I think that's all I need to say.
Pretty big turnaround, I would say.
Yeah. So so we I think we hit every major conference unless I missed Group of 5 team we want to talk about. Appalachian State.
You did.
I did.
Kent State. 62-20 against Bowling Green. 26 of 31, 310 yards and 3 touchdowns. Midview graduate Dustin Crum.
Oh, really? Wow. He went from shredding North Ridgeville to shredding our hometown to shredding Bowling Green, which is basically North Ridgeville's hometown school again. So that's wow.
Yes.
I did see that score come across. Also, DeMario, right, playing for Ohio State, North Ridgeville alum.
Shout out. Returns kicks, doesn't do anything else, but
still, I thought he was going to get some back time. Well, I mean,
he got kind of taken over by a freshman or redshirt freshman Master T, who's probably the next guy in line for Ohio State after J.K. Dobbins is gone. He's pretty good. So,
I mean, at least he's still on the team.
Yeah, he's still on the team.
We're proud of DeMario.
Yes, very proud.
And then the Dowells, some of the Dowell brothers still playing at Michigan State too.
No, Andrew went to the NFL. I don't think he made a roster.
Well, I think my dad said he got injured.
He did? Okay, yeah, because he was on Dallas.
Yeah.
And then David, he's still there.
I was going to say, David's still Michigan. And the youngest one, Michael, is still on
yeah,
Michigan
he's there too, yeah.
They live right near you, don't they?
Yeah, they're literally a 5-minute walk, literally.
There we go. All right, those are the 5 people we know in college football playing major college football.
There you go.
That was a funny impromptu segment. Okay, and then I was going to say Appalachian State also beat North Carolina last week. Looked pretty good there. So another team to watch out for in terms of spoiler parties there. Okay, so that was a 40-minute recap of everything. So now kind of projecting forward here. If we want to run through these conferences, we kind of hinted at some of them, but I'll run through right here and give updated conference picks. Just off the top of my head, I don't have these written down. ACC Clemson. Big 12, I'll take Oklahoma. I know I'm kind of going back on my Texas pick, but I think it's really hard to beat someone twice. I do think Texas wins the first one.
Okay.
I just think Oklahoma's look too good for me to be able to stick to Texas, even though Texas looks good. SEC, I'll take Georgia because I don't want to pick Alabama, and I don't have the full confidence that LSU will beat them yet. But getting closer. I skipped the Big Ten, Ohio State, sorry, Michigan. And then Pac-12, I don't even know. I might as well throw a dart at a wall. I'll go with Washington.
All right. So ACC, Clemson, obviously. SEC, I'll go LSU since I've been hyping up that train. I guess I'll continue riding it. I think. Yeah, but they have to beat Alabama, obviously, because they're not going to lose to anyone else. So unless Auburn does something, but probably not.
Right.
Big 10 or Big 12, I'll probably go Oklahoma too. I picked them to be in the playoffs at the beginning or the first podcast we did. And Jalen Hurts looks really good. But I do think Texas, they have a chance to win that first game. Pac-12, probably. Man, probably Oregon. Justin Herbert. They probably the safest pick. But who knows? Maybe Cal will run the table. Who knows?
Mike Leach is hanging out there just waiting.
Yeah, but probably shouldn't give up 67 points again. So
yeah, really.
There's that. But anything can happen.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then who do you think is the best Group of 5 team? I'll still take UCF. I have to. I think hopefully Boise drops one.
Well, the best team, UCF. I think. I still think they're the best team.
Like the highest ranked team is what they call it or whatever. Let's see Boise's schedule real quick while you say something.
Yeah. I still think they're the best team. Obviously, Ohio State's really good, but you saw Cincinnati absolutely do nothing against Ohio State, which I think UCF would do a little more. Maybe. I think they have a chance to compete with them, but I think they do a little more. And, at Boise, they don't really play that many people, but I still think they're a good team.
Yeah, so they have at BYU on the 19th and at Utah State November 23rd. So one of those games they will lose, so UCF can be the top-ranked team. There we go. That's how we make our homer picks work.
Yes.
So what else? Anything else from college football? I mean, it's lovely to have it back. I mean, it truly is. We're hitting the point where conference play starts. Some teams are disappointing again, like Michigan and Tennessee, like they do every year. I mean, just craziness, like the Washington State game. I mean, it all feels back. Lee Corso's putting on his mascot heads. It just feels all right.
Yep. So do we want to make college football playoff picks updated?
Yeah, let's do it. You want to go with your 4 first?
I'll go with my 4 first. So I picked LSU to win the conference, so I got to pick LSU to win the playoffs. For me, I think whoever wins the conference, and if they run the table, they'll be the number 1 seed.
Yep.
So I'm going to say LSU at number 1, Clemson at number 2, But I'd also like to point out that I don't like it because they don't play anyone. And even though they are good and they probably deserve to be in the playoffs, they don't play anyone, and they don't really – I don't know. It bothers me.
Yeah, their ACC title game probably the best team. I mean, I know they beat Texas A&M by 2 scores, but you're right. It's really tough to evaluate them because you even said it earlier that Trevor Lawrence isn't playing well. Just straight up isn't doing well. So it's I don't want to – I mean, I'm going to pick Clemson too, so I don't get me wrong, but I feel like this could be the year where like the 4, if they're the 1 seed because they're number 1 all year just because they don't lose, that the number 4 seed, whoever it is, could come in and beat them. Of course, you're betting against Dabo then, which is tough.
Yeah, it's hard to do, especially what they did to Alabama last year. So, yeah, Clemson number 2. I'll take Oklahoma at number 3. I think, like I said, I picked them. And then at number 4, I will take I think Georgia runs the table. I think the SEC title game is a close one. And if I think what's going to happen, I think that Georgia's going to get in over the Big Ten champ. Because I think whoever it's going to be, whether it's Ohio State or Wisconsin, they're going to lose a game. And that's kind of going to be the reason they don't get in, like it has been like the past 3 years. Maybe that's just me being pessimistic, but
you're reverse jinxing Ohio State.
Yeah, that's
impressive. That's impressive. In a positive way, you're trying to reverse jinx Ohio State. Wow, okay. I respect it. That's my current argument in my head right now, so I'll run through the first 3. I think Clemson will go 1 just because they'll be 1 wire to wire, whether they struggle or not, whatever. And whatever happens in the playoff, I'm not so sure about that. 2, I will take Georgia over for the SEC, obviously. And then 3, I'll take Ohio State because I think if there's any year a team could run the table in the Big Ten, it could be this year. Obviously, the 2 games against Wisconsin will be huge, but we're not seeing, usually it's the vaunted Big Ten East. We've already covered Michigan. Michigan State has their offensive reshuffling. Doesn't look fantastic. And then, obviously, Rutgers and Maryland, we can toss aside, except for that one weird Maryland week where everyone's like, oh, my God, and they lost to Temple. And then Penn State hasn't looked great either. So, I'm not – obviously, it's tough to predict someone running the table, but I think if there's a year compared to those, for instance, last year, I think Ohio State could do it this year. And, obviously, they've looked very dominant. And that's me just not even being excited for Ohio State. It's just accepting that this is what happens most years. Yeah. So I'll pick Ohio State 3, and then that would leave me with either Georgia or LSU, LSU or Oklahoma for the 4 spot. And at this point, you're looking at a 12-1 LSU, 11-1 LSU, possibly, depending on what happens with the Alabama too is in the mix there, the 2 SEC teams. I'll take Oklahoma just because I think that title game will matter, and I don't see Oklahoma, dropping a game like Ohio State did last year, where Ohio State got blown out by 30-something to Purdue. I don't see Oklahoma doing that. If they lose, they're going to lose to Texas, which the committee isn't going to destroy a team for.
Yeah. So. And speaking of Ohio State losing, watch out for Nebraska this week because I will be in Columbus for that game. Now, I won't be at the game like I was for Purdue, so I don't know where that bad omen comes from. If I just had to be at the game for them to lose, but I will be in Columbus, so maybe they do lose to Nebraska this week. Who knows?
So you're in Columbus, but the game's in Nebraska, right?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Just making sure. Okay, yeah. Well, hopefully not. I mean, Nebraska. That was a team that everyone was so hyped for, and Taylor Martinez, and then same kind of deal that he was just like. I know I was kind of skeptical. We were both skeptical in the preseason, and that's one win for us because there you go. They aren't that good. I mean, they almost lost to Illinois. So yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. So those are updated. Only swapped out 50% of mine. I don't even know if I picked Alabama. I might have. So who knows? Maybe I have just 3/4 of it. But yeah, I mean, just happy to have it back. We'll definitely we'll have to do another check-in with these in probably about another month or so when the CFP gets dropped for the first time. We'll have to see how that looks and everything as the craziness continues on.
College football is going to be fun. I am excited.
It always is. Who knew a sport about football that's extremely unpredictable on the field 100 yards wide, or long, sorry, and 18 to 22-year-olds could be crazy.
Well, we'll only have to wait and see.
That's right. That's why we love it. Luke, thank you for coming on.
It was a pleasure. Always is.
Go Blue. Thank you for listening to the Assist Podcast. If you like the show, go drop a 5-star rating. That really helps us keep the show going. If you want to stay updated with all of the podcast episodes, hit the subscribe button, and also go follow our Twitter, which is @assist_podcast, and our Instagram, which is now the Assist Podcast. And you can write any emails, any suggestions you have to theassistpod@yahoo.com, and we'll see you next week.